Welcome back to Warrior Chats with Mr. Goll.
What's up, Warrior Nation? This is Mr. Goll, and this is the inaugural episode of Warrior Chats. And the whole purpose of Warrior Chats is to quite simply put a smile on members of the TWCA community during this difficult time. We want to put a smile on your face, and also we want to remind you that just because we're social distancing right now does not mean that community just stops happening. And so I thought one of the cool ways that we can continue our community outreach and to remind ourselves of the spirit of TWCA is to get to know our fellow colleagues better, so that students can kind of have a window into how teachers were led to the profession of teaching, and also for us to just be able to get to know one another a little bit better. So my first guest ever on Warrior Chat is the incomparable Miss Brenda Phillips.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited, Brian, that you gave me a call, and I've been hanging out here in my house by myself. I just finished my last class with my students, so I'm ready to hang out with some teachers.
Well, Miss Phillips, let's be honest, you are beloved and perhaps arguably the most popular teacher, not just at Woodlands Christian, but I think I've ever come across. So, well, your students love you more than anything.
Well, I love them, and my blessings come every day just from hanging out with my students. They inspire me, and I'm blessed by them. So it's a win-win. I love them.
It goes both ways, doesn't it? That's kind of the beauty of teaching.
Yeah.
So how many years have you actually been in the classroom as a lead instructor?
35 years.
35 years.
Yeah, 35.
And I'm going to go ahead and assume that this period of the coronavirus and distance learning, this is probably unprecedented territory during any time in education.
Never had anything like this happen before. I mean, I remember when they brought in the first computers, I thought that was going to be really difficult. And I had no idea that, 20, 30 years later, that's how I would be staying afloat in a classroom, was with a computer. So it's, times change, and teachers just have to be flexible. That's what I've learned.
Oh, you have to be so adaptable, don't you? I mean, we all just have to learn how to adjust to this new sense of normal. Absolutely. Right. So what have been some of kind of the strengths and challenges that you faced during this transition into distant learning? Because it is obviously foreign territory for all of us.
So just kind of learning, a system to present information instead of just I present information in the classroom. It's been kind of relying upon a system but also to make it my own. And that's been the twist. The good thing, the greatest thing is that with my students, before we even got to the distance learning, we had a great relationship, and my students know that we're a team. I'm in charge of the team, but we work together as a team to accomplish goals, and we leave no man behind. So there's that understanding. So we just came to a new platform, and it's been a challenge. And I've told my kids, I'm so sorry I couldn't find where you put your assignment, but we'll find it eventually. And we have, and they come to class, and they're willing. They give me a chance, and they allow for failures, just like I allow for failures on their end, because this is a whole new experience. And I never imagined that I would be sitting in my dining room and working with students. And again, I keep laughing because I see all of the pictures and the references to the Brady Bunch. And that's the first thing I thought of when I could see my kids stacked up. I thought, ooh, here's the story, but it's a whole new story. But just like with anything in education and with kids, they just get you excited to come together and figure out how we're going to get through this hurdle.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're doing, and we're doing it. And that's what I'm so proud of them. They are so encouraging to me, and that just, it's awesome.
And I think you hit on something really important. Of so much of teaching does come back to and boil down to relationships. And so the fact that you've had these kids all year, they know that they can trust Miss Phillips, that Miss Phillips is always going to have their best interests at heart. I think in a way that does make this transition more manageable, because they know that at the end of the day, you have their back, and you're going to do everything you can to make sure they're successful in your class, whether you're physically in that classroom or if you're teaching from your kitchen or living room. It transcends the physical aspect.
Well, today I had a couple of kids who popped in, and we had some tutoring and we were talking about, the Great Gatsby. So I'm all excited about that. And one of the students said an hour and 15 minutes just went by talking about the Great Gatsby and just hanging out together. And I went, okay, cool. That works. That works. I'm so glad. And some kids, when all this got started, I would have my pop-in tutorials, and I had kids who were just popping in just to say, "Are you okay? How are you doing, Miss Phillips? I just wanted to see you," or so I am blessed that in addition to teaching something that I love, I am getting to love the people that I teach.
Absolutely. I mean, it's also it's that reciprocation of trust and care. Is that the
Right.
minute they know how much you love them, you
Right.
have that in return as well. And I think that's something that makes teaching so unique and special. Is you don't always have that dynamic in other fields, and that's something that's really, I think, helped a lot of us during this time as well. So
Right.
you are clearly a beloved teacher at TWCA. All right,
Aw.
students, faculty, everyone. But before you were the Miss Brenda Phillips in the classroom, what were some previous jobs you held before you ever stepped into the field of teaching?
Okay. The first job I had, I instructed kids in summer programs. I taught them cheerleading while I was in high school, and then when I was in college, I worked for a pool company. If you had problems with your pool and you needed to get some chlorine or find out how to get rid of the algae,
You were there.
I was
You were the
I was
chlorine girl. You were the chlorine
I
girl.
was a plunge-in pool girl. I was a chlorine girl. And then I was moved over. The same family had a water company. So I became billing, and I collected money and notified people when they owed money for their water bills. And I would work about 30, 35 hours a week to pay for college because that's the only way I got to go. So it was a win-win thing. And then the last year I actually got to work on the campus, and I worked in the Department of Student Life,
Mhm.
which was great because if I met really interesting people when I was out and about, I could find out how to get in contact with them because we didn't have cell phones and all of that. So I could look up to see if they'd ever been in trouble with student
It was
affairs.
sort of like a glorified stalker position almost.
Yes, it was. It was
In a way,
great.
in a way it was.
Yeah. And so that was the last year I was on campus. I did that. And then from there, I was ready for my first job.
Mhm.
And I remember going in with my empty briefcase, but I had a bow tie outfit on, and Spring ISD actually took a chance on me. And 22 years later, I had been working for them, and then I went over to Tomball ISD for about 7-8 years, and then it truly was an act of it was a God thing that I ended up at the Woodlands Christian Academy, and I share that story with my students, and I always tell them that's why I'm sitting here with you, because this is what God called me to do. So I have been at the Woodlands Christian now 6 years, and I'm not planning on going anytime soon. So I'm hoping to get to work with more students and just develop those relationships, because that's why I keep coming back for it. And I tell my students that teaching it's hard,
Mhm.
and it's really become difficult under the situations that we're in now. But I've been blessed that I've never had a job in my life. Well, maybe selling chlorine was a job, but I have joy every day, and I see this in you too. Mr. Gall, you love on those kids, and it's joy every day.
Absolutely.
And I really would not want to be doing this if I couldn't find that joy and the blessings that come. So it's
Everything you're talking about makes me think of the line that there's absolutely a difference between a job and a career. And that's where
exactly
an education, field of education, the people you get to work with, the students you get to serve, and the creativity that happens in the classroom, that's always felt like a career. It's never felt like, oh, all right, I got to go from 7 to 4 o'clock today, and I don't know if I'm going to get through it. And teaching
well,
really is a calling as well, you know.
no, it is. And I was thinking for the years that I've taught, I was typically averaging about 150 kids a year. So, I
Mhm.
mean, I think I've crossed paths with well over 5,000 students. And most of them, if I run into them again, it takes me a while now to like pull their name out of
Process.
my
Right.
brain. But I do. And I've even actually taught students of former students, which, that's That's fun because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. See that, on a regular basis. But that, it's those little things that just kind of keep me coming back for more. So,
Absolutely. No, that's so good. And I was thinking about just what the students are having to go through right now during this period, and obviously all of the faculty and staff, our hearts are breaking for the seniors right now. And so I was
right.
wondering, do you have just sort of a word of encouragement or advice for the seniors, and kind of what if you could say, this is my 2 cents about how to approach this next chapter of your life? What would you kind of tell our seniors right now?
We've actually been working on a writing assignment their last lecture, and I asked them to think about what this senior year means to them. Did they want to be remembered as the class that didn't get to have the prom and they didn't get to have the traditional graduation, or what did they see? And as I look at their writings, and what I've been telling them is, you know, you ask for more time. We never have enough time, and you've got time right now. And they're spending it with their family, and they're spending it with God. I told them, I said, so many times it was like, oh, I'll talk to God later when I have more time.
Mhm.
I've got time now.
Right.
And I've been doing that. And so I think I've been encouraging my students to really think about this time as a reflection moment, um, to make a difference and to realize the strength that we all have when faced with situations, because life is going to happen, and it's going to keep happening.
Absolutely.
And the best laid plans, the
That's like
best laid
mice
plans
and
always,
men often go awry.
yeah,
That's why I love
and
talking to English teachers.
yeah, it just does. So I just keep telling the kids, and they keep coming to me with comments in their writing about the strength and the time with family and the time with God. And I think you're going to see the class of 2020 is going to come out of this stronger and better,
No,
than any of us have ever imagined.
no
Just
question.
and those values, the values this class is going to walk away with. I'm so proud of them.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that some of their pieces of writing we'll be able to share before everybody takes off for the summer.
I hope
And
that
the
too. I would love
reflections,
to read some of your
oh yeah, as they look back on how it is. I'm so happy for them.
I
But
was
yeah,
thinking about it, how in today's world there we always value kind of busyness, and the busier you are, the better, and that we need to always be striving for something, and really we can use this time to kind of take a moment and breathe. And I do think recognize all that God does give us every day. And so absolutely. And so just to close, Ms. Phillips, I wanted to share just a quick story with those who are going to be watching this. So
okay.
it was in 2018, and it was, I believe, it was the year before I arrived at Woodlands Christian, and I was interviewing the job with Mr. Clark, and I came in for the day, and I observed Miss Sines and Mrs. Chapman, and then Miss Phillips, and I just remember really enjoying the opportunity to sit in on their classes and to learn and see their teaching styles. And then I'll never forget that you weren't originally on the schedule for me to go observe, and I saw all these kids rushing to your room. I'm like, well, hold on, Mr. Clark, can I go see this teacher as well? He's like, oh, sure, we should
I,
go meet Miss
I
Phillips.
was giving out candy. I was
Yeah,
giving out
we're
candy.
giving out candy. And so, well, what became so palpable and so obvious the minute you stepped into that room is that there was a real love that the students had for you. It
Oh,
wasn't it wasn't one of those situations where, okay, I have to go to English today. It was, I get to go to English today.
oh,
And I just told Mr. Clark after that day, I said, obviously it'd be a privilege to work here, but I want to work with Brenda Phillips because
oh.
I know that I'm going to be a
You,
better teacher because of
well, if you remember that day when you walked in, we were studying The Great Gatsby, which I'm actually
absolutely.
working with juniors, and we were talking about the green light. And when you walked in the room, I could tell you had the it quality that a great teacher possesses, and I was right. But and if you recall, I put you to work
You
as soon
did.
as you
I
walked.
was I was not a silent bystander.
You're not going to sit there.
I
I thought I'm
you
going
were
to
not
name
going to be quiet in your class.
yeah, no, you did. And I had you teaching the class, and I watched as these kids that I love on and love teaching, when they instantly responded to you, because they get that same sense when you walk into that room that it's a privilege to be in this room and I get to be here. And so I
Absolutely.
was so happy you joined our staff, and I was thrilled to have you next door during that first year, because I learned, and that's what good teachers do. I mean, you learn. I learn from my students every day, and I learn from my colleagues, and I just I
you
have
learn
enjoyed
through the
working with
fellowship
you.
of teaching. I mean, obviously your friendship has been incredible for me, but also just the mentorship of the
Yeah.
fact that we're always trying to be better each and every day because there's always room for improvement. And I learned so much from you and Mrs. Chapman and the signs. And then the fact that, I was 24 and teaching and you were coming in and you were taking things that I was doing and applying it to your classroom. It just shows you the give and take dynamic of teaching that I think is so unique
Right.
and so valuable.
It is.
But, well,
So
Ms.
I'm
Phillips,
excited. I'm excited. We still got the year
we
going,
thought
and
the year going, and at least at the end of the day, we still get to see the kids, and we're doing all we can. But Ms. Phillips, I want to thank you for being my first guest on Warrior Chats.
well, this was fun. This was fun, Brian. So, I love getting to talk to you, and this is a neat idea. So again, a great idea from a great teacher.
I
There
appreciate
you are.
that. Well, stay healthy, stay safe, and as always, everyone at TWCA loves you. All right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, Ms. Phillips.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Warrior Chats with Mr. Goll. Tune in next week for more.